time to take a look at what's been making headlines across the globe, and that duty today falls on the shoulders of Laurent Bechstecker. Hello, Laurent.
Hi,
We're going to be starting in France, where the Interior Minister, Christophe Castaner, is facing growing criticism over his claim that a hospital was attacked by May Day protesters. It's a claim which has now been widely dismissed as being false or exaggerated.
That's right, and the story has been making headlines in many French newspapers today, including Libération, which is calling it fake news from the Interior Ministry. To give a bit of context to those of you who are not familiar with this story, on Wednesday, Castaner tweeted that protesters had violently attacked a hospital in Paris, attacking staff, doctors and nurses, trying to break into an intensive care unit, and even stealing property. Now, this version was initially corroborated by the hospital's director and then relayed by various media. But the next day, different accounts began to emerge, and with videos and witnesses telling a different story, that the protesters were actually mostly non-violent and were trying to escape a charge by riot police, which had encircled them. And that's how they ended up in the hospital. Now, according to Libération, this deals a severe blow to the already fragile credibility of the French government, with the best case scenario that Castaner was misinformed, and the worst case scenario, of course, that he was intentionally lying to discredit the movement. Now, in an editorial, the paper even compares Castaner to Donald Trump, saying both men tweet faster than their shadows.
And as a result, the incident has led to an increased scrutiny of the violent methods that were used by police during those protests.
That's right, and one of those methods consists of encircling protesters and then charging in without leaving them an exit route, which they should be obliged to do by law. And that's what happened at the hospital as well. Now, Libération again argues that this, while it did help limit damage and destruction on May 1st, could create a massive rift between police and the population. It's already damaging this trust, and this could ultimately be much worse than a few broken windows. Now, this story was also picked up by other news outlets in France, including Le Figaro, which says that Castaner is actually under pressure to resign now over this misstep by both socialists and conservatives.
Now, let's move to another story and the promise of an extraordinary medical breakthrough, and that is a recently published medical study suggesting that the battle against AIDS could be won.
It could be, and the Guardian calls it a landmark study, arguing that the end of AIDS is in sight. Now, the research followed 1,000 male couples where one partner was infected with HIV but was receiving treatment for it over a period of 8 years and found 0 cases of transmission. That basically means that if someone is taking medication for HIV, they have basically 0 risk of infecting someone else. Now, this doesn't mean the battle is won, but it's a giant step forward and provides a pathway to getting rid of that disease. A major challenge, of course, being that people often get tested too late. The Guardian argues that this should encourage more people to get tested early and could help also dissipate some of the stigma surrounding HIV.
Okay, now coming back to France, and the architects have already begun pitching their ideas to rebuild Notre-Dame Cathedral. What have they been coming up with, Laurent?
Well, there's all sorts of ideas. Just after the fire, Edouard Philippe, the Prime Minister, launched an international competition to rebuild Notre-Dame's roof and spire. And some conservatives have been calling for it to be rebuilt identically. Other younger architects have had more creative and innovative ideas, sometimes a little crazy. Now, here's some of my favorite picks. One Brazilian architect, for instance, suggested rebuilding the entire roof of the cathedral with stained glass to give it a new look while staying true to the cathedral's spirit and give this majestic impression. It looks quite nice. Another suggestion was the infinite arrow, which would rebuild the spire with a beam of light shooting up to the heavens. This architectural dream, this old Gothic architect's dream of linking heaven and earth, basically. And there were also some more environmentally friendly suggestions and entries. For instance, building a greenhouse on the roof. Another one suggested a hanging garden up there. But my personal favorite is called The Giant Flame. It's a little bold, maybe. The architect wanted to immortalize the recent tragedy by rebuilding the spire in the shape of the fire that destroyed it. Maybe it's a bit too soon for that, though.
I have to say I like the one with the glass roof. That's my personal favourite. OK, it's the end of the week. It's Friday. Let's end with an update on that very lovely and cute beluga whale who was found last week by Norwegian fishermen. What has happened to him or her?
Well, it wasn't all that cute when they found it initially. Let's remember that this beluga was swimming off the coast of Norway and was found by fishermen with a harness on it that said property of St. Petersburg. Naturally, that led to theories that the beluga was in fact a Russian spy trying to gather information on the Norwegian Navy, maybe. But now, a week later, it happens. It appears that the beluga is still there in Norway. It's been staying within the same 25-mile radius, and what the Washington Post says could be a high-profile defection. Maybe it decided to turn its back on the Kremlin. It enjoyed, the international attention it got in the past week and switched its allegiance to Norway.
Look, he or she may be a Russian spy, but it's still very, very cute.